I think we can open the Board of Health meeting for September 7th, 2023. I'll just say that anyone who wishes to speak in the public forum today, as you know, needs to state his or her name and the community you reside in. Come to the center table and either stand or you can sit. We just have a microphone there, so that allows you to be heard by everyone in attendance. We only allow speakers to speak on items on the agenda, and we've got a limitation of 2 minutes for speaking. So I think we can open the meeting, and I see we have Ms. Wetchy at the podium.
Jacqueline Wetchy, Fitchburg resident, speaking on agenda item 2A. You should show mercy to this small business owner. Furthermore, you should rescind all local tobacco regulations. Massachusetts already has the strictest state regulations in the nation, and we don't need local regulations as well. Many of them duplicate the state regulation and yet count as a separate violation, escalating fines. For example, from $1,000 to $3,000 or from $3,000 to $5,000. Last year, your department alone imposed $27,994 in fines. This is why Fitchburg has such a bad reputation as being hostile to businesses. The only tobacco rule you need to worry about is sales to minors. Let adults do what they want with their bodies. You fine people for things like sale of flavored palm leaves with no tobacco in them. It's just a money grab. Newsflash, people don't smoke weed to get the fruity flavor of a blunt wrap. They smoke weed to get high and maybe to, pardon the pun, blunt the anxiety of dealing with your department. Leave this businessman alone and all the others who, if your last tobacco hearing is indicative, you notify of constantly changing lists of banned products by leaving clerks written notices in a language they don't read or write, notices which may never even reach them. Like in Ferguson, Missouri, government officials make big bucks off a poor community through onerous fines. Shame on you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who want to comment on that? Anyone here? We'll be having another tobacco hearing later in this meeting, and we can certainly pass on your message to those who help to make the rules here. With that having been done, I think we can go ahead and look at the rest of the agenda. The first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes of our last meeting, which was held on June 1st, 2023. Is there anything that anyone had to change or alter those?
No. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 1st, 2023.
Okay, and I'll second it. And I guess we're unanimous in that. So nice job. Meeting minutes are approved.
If I could interrupt you for a moment, I'd just like to introduce one new employee.
Oh, sure, certainly.
Good afternoon, folks. I would just like to introduce our new Weights and Measures inspector. His name is Peter DeLorme. He is before us. He is part-time Weights and Measures for the city of Fitchburg. He is also a regional inspector, part-time, and he is also covering the landfill when the need arises. He did start in January, so he's not brand new, but he has been at the landfill for several months covering for an injury at the landfill. But I'd just like to introduce Mr. Peter DeLorme.
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and welcome. Could you give a brief summary of what you find that you do each day or each week? Briefly, doesn't it?
Find that, well, right now, as Mr. Curry told you, I spent a few months at the landfill. We had an employee that was having hip surgery, so I am learning how to At gas stations, we need to prove that they are selling the right amount of gas that is posted, 5-gallon quantities. The city has invested in 5-gallon test provers for me to do so. The city has also invested in weights that are certified by the Department of Standards, and I use those weights to go around to check all the local scales to make sure that the customers are getting what they are paying for. And I'm working with the Division of Standards constantly, and I'm still learning and coming along quite well.
Well, again, welcome, and
That's my daily basis,
thanks
and
for all
helping
you
out around the office.
super. Don't let him make you do too much of his work.
I met your wife, Dr. B, last week or the week before when she came in for the plans for the septic system and stuff, and very sweet lady. And me and Karen muddled through it.
Oh, thank you very much.
We muddled through your septic system planogram.
We're working on it. Thanks.
Yeah, great. So nice to meet you all, and I'm happy to be here, and thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right, thank you. Well, I think that we have then, I don't know if Joan is here or who's going to be, oh, there she is. Okay. There's the glare here. We're going to move on then with the hearing requests, the first to do with Patriot Gas and tobacco violations. I think you guys were here then to hear Ms. Wetchy's comments.
I'm here, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just talking with the weights and measures, the gas station owner, trying to figure out who do I contact in the state or him now, so now I know what I'm doing.
Right, the state was doing it for multiple years.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I know we can touch it.
Contact me. Wish I had a card.
Nice to meet you.
And I'll be seeing you.
Okay, absolutely. Way approach. Sorry.
Thank you, folks.
Sorry about that. My name is Robert Danis. Is it Patriot Gas or?
Yeah.
Hold on, you're going to go to that table, Mr. Dennis.
This is an enforcement hearing, correct? So.
This is his appeal.
His appeal hearing, yeah. So usually what happens is we tell what happens and then he opens it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on a minute, he's going to lead us into that.
Yeah, let me, I'm getting disoriented here. Well, I'm Dr. John Bogdasarian, chairman of the Fitchburg Board of Health. We have Steve Curry, Ian Murray, and Diane Tousignant, also members of the Board of Health. The reason for this hearing is because of noncompliance with the Mass State of Sanitary Code minimum standards for retail sale of tobacco and electronic nicotine delivery systems. It's a formal hearing. All affected parties shall be given an opportunity to be heard, to present witnesses or documentary evidence regarding noncompliance with regulations of the Board of Health, restricting the sale of tobacco products in the Massachusetts State Sanitary Code minimum standards of retail sale of tobacco and electronic nicotine delivery systems. Please note that every notice, order, or other record in connection with the hearing shall be entered as a matter of public record in the office of the Board of Health. At this hearing, I remind all that Board of Health will make a decision whether a fine, suspension, or both, or take no action, shall be taken against the owner and or the establishment which holds permits for the sales of tobacco and nicotine delivery products from the Fitchburg Board of Health. I ask that we all respect one another, and that anyone not respectful of others or becomes belligerent will be asked to leave. Hopefully that doesn't happen. At this time, I would like all persons who plan to give testimony at this hearing, please raise your right hand and understand that you are testifying under oath. Do you solemnly swear and confirm the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth?
Yes.
You do, I think. Okay, and I ask that if there are documents that you wish to be entered, please introduce each document for the record as Exhibit 1, 2, 3, and 4, etc. And if there are objections to the exhibits, then I, as Chairman of the Board of Health, will decide if an exhibit should be introduced. At this time, we'll begin the hearing in order now, with tobacco control agent Joan Hamlet.
I just want to state, I'm Joan Hamlet, and I am the Fitchburg Tobacco Agent, and we have been the Fitchburg Tobacco Agency for the city of Fitchburg since 1994.
That's better, thanks.
We do have copies of the violation, but do you have a copy of your violation?
Can I go first? Do you mind? I'm going to agree with everything she's saying. I'm not going to disagree with what she's saying. But there was circumstances behind what she does not understand, what she doesn't know. She's going to be correct in everything she's saying. I'm not here to
No, so we just state the facts of what happened. And then
Facts
you
are all
can-
correct. Whatever I got, whatever they see up there is correct.
Right, she actually has the opportunity to speak first.
Okay, that's fine,
I
that's fine.
understand-
All right.
I understand you're trying to be polite and nice, but Ms. Hamlet should have the
That's fine,
opportunity
I'm sorry.
to present her side.
I just want to make sure that all board members and Robert has from the copies of your violations?
Yes.
Because we don't have anything extra to present, just the current
can give them
copy
my
of the
copies.
violations. So I just want to start off by saying that Patriots Gas, we inspect every store in the community, all in the same month, the same time frame, same manner, and whatnot. When we do an annual inspection, everybody in the city, this was not a targeted, this was a regular routine annual inspection. Patriots Gas has not been on our radar for all the years that Robert has owned this store. He's not been on our radar. We've had a previous violation, which was just a warning of a flavor enhancer. Hey, listen, you're not supposed to have this. Make sure you get rid of it. That happened back in 2022. There was no penalty, no violation, just a warning given to, yeah, you can't have this, and going over his responsibility. Then when we entered the store on 5/15/2023, and there was a sale to a minor that occurred, and it was a little bit more concerning than a typical sale to a minor, because in the inspection, the youth asked for Russian cream backwoods, which is a restricted flavored product, and it was under the counter, and they asked him if he had a card, and he said, my license, and they said, no, do you have a card, like a card from us? And he said, no, all I want is the Russian cream, and he could see some white packaging behind in the backwoods, so he thought it was Russian cream, and he said, no, I just want Russian cream. Another male staff person came out and said, he obviously knows what's going on, just tell him the routine. So the clerk said, we're going to give you a card, and when you come in, you need to just put this card down and ask for your product, and we'll sell it to you. They did not ask him for an ID. They didn't anything. So they handed him the card, and he said, okay, can I have the Russian cream? They took the Russian cream from underneath the counter and sold it to our minor. So as you can see in the summary, we have the card. It's a gas card, but they told him to just put this card down when you come in. So we give the card to the next youth who comes in for a reinspection, because now we're thinking we have been told by different people that if you have a secret password, store owners in multiple towns will pull out. If you know what the password is, they'll pull out. Apparently this was a card system. So we brought the card into the store. We gave the youth the card. We told them to ask for Russian cream in the second inspection on the 6th. And he went in to ask for the Russian cream, and the clerk pulled it out from underneath the counter, Russian cream, the illegal flavor, and he said it was $7.55. The clerk only had $6. So the clerk said to him, well, you can't have the Russian cream, but you can have the plain. So he sold him the Russian plain. So we're here for 2 sales to a minor, which we could have went on and done a further investigation, but at this point right now we're talking $1,000 fine with 3-day suspension, $2,000 fine with a 10-day suspension, which is under the state law, set by the state law, that requires the board to use those fines. This isn't local regulation. This is the board's responsibility under the state law. So what we didn't want to do is, something's going on here, so we did not want to saddle this retailer. We said, let's get the fines out, because I could have went in a third time and we'd be looking at a stackable $5,000 30-day suspension. We didn't want to do that. But mind you, in the first violation, we could have stacked the fine and issued 1,000 for selling to a minor and 2,000 because it was an illegal product sold, flavored product sold. We didn't do that. So we are, our goal in public health is to help retailers come into compliance. We've done significant education. We go to the store and we hand deliver an education packet every year and go over it with the owners and managers, and they sign that they receive it in addition to emailing it, in addition to mailing it by mail, to make sure that all of our retailers know what the law is. We don't know what's going on here, and it sounds like, Robert is going to explain to us that something happened in his store. So I just wanted to present the facts of the case. I think everybody, if you have read it, the details are in the post is the actual, there's a form post in your packet. This is what comes off the state database that was entered at the time of the inspection. The handwritten is what we do. On the iPad, they enter it into the iPad, but whenever there's a sale, we do it in handwriting because we just, in case there's a data breach or something wrong, we want to have the information, so it's done in hand at the time of the inspection in the parking lot of the store. The iPad, GPS tracks us. The minute we open the iPad, a satellite tracks us, and it shows us the coordinates that we were in the parking lot of the store. I don't think that we have a case here that the sales didn't happen. It sounds like Robert wants to talk about why it happened, but it is concerning where this is a completely compliant store that did not have a history, and all of a sudden there is what appears to be some sort of system, and this store is located by the college, and we've been getting reports about some stores, allowing if you know the password. For a while we were told if you wanted to buy Newports in Fitchburg, and certain stores in Fitchburg and certain stores in Gardner, you could go in and just ask the clerk and say the word, "I'd like Big Daddy," and they know that's Newport menthol that they're not supposed to be selling. We're not saying that did or didn't happen here. When we get reports like that, we do what we can to investigate them, but lots of times we're not able to prove that that's what happened. In this particular case, there's 2 sales to a minor. One was a flavored product. There was dialogue with 3 different store clerks about the card. And then in the second one, the card never came into play because the youth wasn't even asked for the card. He just asked for the product, and they didn't even ask him to show the card or anything. So the card did not come in play. But the youth inspector did see the Russian cream. They pulled it out from under the counter. He didn't have enough money, put it back, and offered him the plain instead. And in the first inspection, it was a 19-year-old male. And in the second inspection, it was a 18-year-old male.
You answered a couple of the questions I was going to ask. One other question, if I may, just before we ask Robert to speak. These males then are individuals whom you utilize or ask to go in? In other words, they're not people that off the street and then...
No, they're trained youth inspectors. They have to go through the state training protocol. They follow the same training protocol as the youth used in the FDA underage inspections and the state underage inspections. We're the local component, and we all share the same youth. They go online and they do an online course, and then they have to get an 80 or better on the test to be able to be a youth inspector, and then they do an in-office training with us locally, and then they also have to do a ride-along before they're out on their own, where they go in and they watch an inspector. They buy either a soda or a water behind an inspector. And what we do is we have youth from all over. We do this for 46 towns, and we have youth from all over. So they won't be a youth that goes to school, works, or lives in Fitchburg. That will be a youth from another town. We might take a Fitchburg youth that's trained and on our payroll, and they'll go out to Groton. We do not put kids in position where it's their neighborhood store, where it could be a friend's, cousin's, brother's friend that's the clerk, or it's where they go to school, or they could have any repercussions, because sometimes clerks print the picture of the youth and put them on their wall and go, "This is a youth inspector." So we do the best that we can following the federal, state, and the Department of Public Health protocols to protect the youth, so the youth is anonymous to this community.
And in order to purchase these products legally, one has to be 21 years old, is that correct?
Correct.
And is this the first time that Patriot Gas has had a,
This is the first, we go back into the database 3 years because the tolling period is 36 months. I went back to 2015 and we had no violations. As I said, Patriots Gas was not on our radar in any way, shape, or form with community complaints, parent complaints, school complaints, or on our radar where in our inspections we thought something was going on. So we were, but because of the sale, you know, if it was a sale to a minor, we waited for the first inspection because we wanted to see if that card would come in play and if a second person could get a thing using that card. Was this card one of those passwords that some retailers have done? And we did very recently, we uncovered something like this in another Fitchburg store where the police were involved, and it was, you know, the retailer, you know, paid the fine and took the suspension. They didn't appeal it. It was a $2,000 fine and a 7-day suspension, and he didn't appeal it. But there was police involved in that one, and that was more recently as well.
so ordinarily,
It was actually in the same inspection as this that they had sold. So,
ordinarily an individual has to show an identification card like a license or passport or something to
yes, it has to be a
verify this?
valid Mass ID, valid accepted Massachusetts ID. So you can be out of state and use an out-of-state driver's license, but it has to be a valid license, passport, state ID, state-issued ID.
Gotcha.
In neither case, neither youth were asked for an ID.
Yes.
And again, we normally issue the violation, you know, the next business day when we can, but we waited because we were putting it under investigation now because of the card. 2 employees co-joined and discussed this card, saying, "Oh, just give it to him. He knows about it." And he's like, "What?" Because he gave him his ID, his license, and he said, "No, not that." So.
Any questions that either of you has, or? Okay. Well, if you're finished with your side of the story, then we'll ask Robert to respond. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me here. I would just like to point out that I've been in Fitchburg now since 2015, and I've not had one issue with anybody, I would say, except for one permitting. I was switching my pumps, and I didn't get a permit right away, so it was my fault. But and I've been in the business outside of Fitchburg for 30 years, and I've not had an issue. In this situation, I can't deny it. It was sold at my store. It was absolutely stolen in my store. At the end of February, I broke my ankle in 3 places. My tibia, fibia, elongated bone, tore 2 ligaments, and was bedridden since I had my operation March 10th. So I couldn't move out of my bed for 3 months. So I was absent from middle of March to the middle of June. I had no idea about this tobacco sale until I got these letters. The only negative thing I have to say about these letters is I didn't receive these letters until the beginning of June, or thereabouts, the middle of June, of which one was done May 15th, and the other one was June 7th. It's a pretty long time to find out that your store, especially in my situation, was having a problem, and there was no manager there. I'm the manager, well, not now, but I hired another person. I was the only manager there.
Could I just interrupt you?
Sure.
The inspections were May 15th and
June 7th.
and June 7th.
Correct.
And you got letters about them when?
I think I got them, actually July 1st.
All right.
So in my situation, it would have been preferable if I got them sooner, because I would have been able to do something right away. Like I said, I was bedridden. I have my full medical about my ankle here.
You look trustworthy. We'll believe you.
I can show you. You can see my ankles are swollen.
I noticed that one of your shoes was untied.
I can't fit my sneaker on my foot. So unfortunately, I didn't have a manager So the two people that she's talking about, and there was only two people that did this at night. One of them I had fired earlier because there was theft involved, which was a different situation. But what they were doing is that when I wasn't there, they were bringing a knapsack with them.
Again, to interrupt you, you said you had fired, you mean after this happened,
After,
not before?
no, not that I know, before I knew about this, I had fired one of them because he was stealing. Yeah, he fired one because he was stealing. And the second one would bring the product in a school bag in, and was using my gas card, which I was going to use because if everybody here knows, Prime was going across the street, so I was going to have some competition. So I was planning on using it for a gas card, fill it 5 times and get something for free. They were using that as, I guess, the code. I didn't know, again, I didn't know about this until I got these letters. I would never sell this stuff, especially if it's illegal in my store. And I always tell my employees to card, no matter what. So I was unavailable, literally. My wife was going back and forth from her job and the house and taking care of the biggest baby of all to my gas station just to pick up the paperwork and money. And she doesn't know anything about the business. So from the middle of March to middle of June, I pretty much didn't walk into my store. I couldn't walk into my store. I literally couldn't walk until the end of June. I just started walking. So there was no management there at all, no one to guide the employees or tell employees what to do and what not to do. So these two employees that she had pointed out were selling the stuff, and he wasn't carding because he was training somebody, and one of the new trainee was telling my new manager that that person wasn't carding. So I then fired him after I received these, because I looked at the video and I saw he was involved. He was the second person. There was a young kid, and then there was him. And then the next day that they came in, the 7th, it was just him on a Wednesday night. Those were his hours worked. I had the video to prove it. So I terminated him as well. I have since this situation came up with policies I could show the board, of which every new employee or every employee has to sign, facing different issues, especially the tobacco. I have a tobacco control policy, which we made up since this issue, to show that each employee is not responsible for the tobacco that's being sold in my store, as well as myself. I hired a manager. I got new surveillance cameras so I could personally look from home and watch my employees anytime I want, to focus more on controlling my store. Again, this was a freak accident that I had. Believe me, my wife and I can't believe she's still with me. I don't know what the hell she's thinking about. But yeah, it was quite an ordeal, especially with this. So I want to do nothing but abide by the town policies. I'm hurt by this.
No, we understand, and it sounds like you've had your share of suffering through all this. Joan, just to go back to you for a moment, as far as you mentioned what the traditional or typical penalties might be for this sort of thing. Has anything been levied so far or served?
Yeah, we served him a $1,000 fine for the first offense and a 3-day permit suspension, and that's standard, and that's required by the law. On a sale to a minor under the state, because this isn't under your local reg, this is under the state law, and it's a state order. Under a sale to a minor, a Board of Health can find him responsible or not responsible, but you can only find him not responsible if you believe the sale did not occur in the store, or you feel like there was an error in the protocol in the process. We did not make any errors in the protocol or the process. And then the second offense was a $2,000, and the state law, the minimum permit suspension is 7 days. Minimum 7 days. So we issue 3, 7, and 30 because your local reg is 3, 7, and 30. But on the first offense, for a sale to a minor, the board has latitude to reduce or increase the suspension between 1 and 7. A not responsible finding needs to be based on you believe the sale did not occur. I do want to say, I mean, obviously, we're public health people. The first thing we are is compassionate. The second thing we are is we want to help people come into compliance. We are not in the business of trying to find people in non-compliance, but this was an investigation beyond a normal sale. It does sound like there was an explanation for it, but one of the things that, questions that come up into my mind, and this is the same question that we asked the other retailer, this is a high-volume store. It's probably one of the highest volume stores in in Fitchburg, down over by Slattery's, at the corner of Slattery's and the Light. It's oftentimes when we try to do a retail ed there on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we turn around and come back because it's so busy. So I understand that you had an injury, but do you own any other stores?
No.
Okay. So there was no manager? You left nobody in charge?
I broke my ankle.
Right.
I have time to
It sounds as if he-
interview people, to hire people. I apologize.
Well, no,
but-
I just meant prior to being the owner, you had no assistant manager, shift manager, because a lot of stores have an assistant manager or shift manager.
It's me, and me.
Okay. And then the other question that I had was, you said that you installed a security system. Did you have a security system?
I did, but not one I could view from home.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So for 3 months, you didn't, I'm just trying, payroll had to be done, people had to be paid, things had to be ordered.
Do it in a seat, lifted it with a chair, and my foot under a pillow in my seat.
Okay.
That's how I did all the paperwork. That's how I had a laptop at home, and my wife would go back and forth and bring whatever would be needed.
just going back to the assessments or the penalties. So the first one was for $1,000, 3 days suspension. Second would be for $2,000 a week or 7 days suspension. Has anything been paid or any time served as yet?
No.
So,
No, he requested a hearing, so it was lifted until you've been heard.
fair enough, okay.
I mean, it's not a good feeling to be in this place, but there wasn't a procedural error. 2 sales happened several weeks apart. We don't know in that course of how many youth were able to access flavored tobacco. I do wanted to note is one of the things that I did is in the Post. The youth reported he rang it in the register because the youth go in with nothing in their pockets. We give them their money. They have to tell us exact change, and they have to tell us what was rung into the register. So in both these cases, they did check rang in the register. So if they were selling out of their bag, how did you not notice that there was an inventory and your money wasn't matching up?
Refunded it.
I'm
They
sorry?
refunded it.
So that for every sale they did, you found these
But
refunds?
a few of them, I saw some refunds, but it wasn't that far out of the normal.
Okay.
Ian or Diane, do you have any questions or?
So is it my understanding that because these, both of these sales happened, that there's no way to excuse or to move around that has to go forward as it's stated, the first offense and the second offense? Is that, am I understanding that?
That is correct. However, the only 2 reasons a board can find a sale to a minor not responsible is if you believe we made an error in the inspection and protocol, or you believe the evidence doesn't show a sale occurred. Those are the two options.
I suppose if one were being somewhat skeptical, we don't know if any other sales were made other than these
No.
2. And if they hadn't been sent in, would any sales have been made at all? In other words, in a way, it almost is asking for it to happen. I know it's what you do and what you have to do, but I'd have to ask myself, if those individuals had never gone into the store, would any sale have ever occurred? We don't know that for sure. I'll get a little personal here again, and maybe it's not completely within the law. I think this fellow had no previous transgressions, as it were. He's had a long, clear record, not only here, but in his prior business. He's had none since. He's done everything he can to get rid of the people who offended, who didn't do the right thing. He's made corrections in his business to try to prevent it from happening again. Certainly he couldn't have helped the injury that he had, and from the sounds of it, he wasn't able to get to work and do anything about any of this, even if he had wanted to. So my own personal feeling about it is to let it go at this point, and with the knowledge that he has never done it before. He had really no part in it actually happening. It was employees who perhaps weren't doing the job they should have, but he couldn't really supervise them or control them because of his situation. And since it's happened, he's done everything he can to prevent it. And lastly, we don't know if it would have happened if 2 people who were sent there hadn't showed up, if it would have happened at any time anyway. So I don't know if I'm going outside the law, but
You are.
yeah, but
I have to state that for the record as your agent,
Yeah.
as, protection for the process. A not responsible finding unless you believe the sale didn't happen or you think I made an error.
It sounds like you're trying to, there's no other way around it, isn't this?
Well, I think, can I make a suggestion? Can we, what's it called? Continue the hearing? Because on flavor, which is a different thing than sales to minors because it's considered a little bit lesser, boards have found them responsible, but they were where they paid the fine, because the law does not allow you to reduce the fine either, where they paid the fine, but they continued the permit suspension without a finding. So as long as in 36 months you didn't have another, it would be wiped out. But if you had another, then you have to serve. I would like to see if we can continue this hearing, and I can check with legal to see if that's an option for sales to minors.
I think that's better.
Where, in a way, if it's leaning toward, I'm a public health person. I'm vice chair of a board in Athol. I feel it's not that we don't have compassion, but it does open a floodgates. And I do want to say, also in Fitchburg, we had a retailer that had no violations, no problems, got a complaint about them, and did an inspection and accidentally uncovered the largest bust in Massachusetts of illegal products, and then other agencies were brought in because there was also other illegal products that had nothing to do with tobacco, and it was like over $75,000 in product. And that person also had a long-term history cooperating. So again, I just don't.
I understand.
Trying to, protect the processes, but I am willing, if we can continue the hearing and rejoin. Nothing, he doesn't have to pay anything. He continues with his business. He puts his new practices in. We did not do, whenever there's a sale, we do a re-inspect. Like whenever someone has a violation, we have to do a repeat violator. We paused on that because we did not want to have another $5,000 fine. So if we can go at your neck, if you can continue the hearing, is this something, Steve, that can be done? Have you continued hearings before?
We've done it before, sure.
Yeah, continued hearing. Let me do a little research on the continue without a finding, if that can apply here.
Well, I personally would appreciate that. Does that mean that we can defer the fine as well as the?
I don't know. I don't think so, because it's in all flavor and youth access. It's very clear in the law that a board cannot, or a clerk magistrate cannot reduce the fine. So not only here, in court they can't reduce the fine. It can only be responsible or not responsible under whatever the guidelines are in the specific law. But I do know some boards have continued without a finding the permit suspension portion of flavor violations. This hasn't come up at all because everybody's either accepted the penalty or the board has found them responsible, and it hasn't come up. So I'd like to research that a little bit. And then in the meantime, he can continue to operate his business, institute his new practices, get back on his feet, and then...
And just before I let you ask your question, I just want to ask you to define responsible. You say we find him responsible. Is that because he didn't have an assistant manager? And he couldn't be there.
Because he owns a business that's sold to minor. So anybody who has a business that sells to a minor, the law doesn't take in consideration the reason why the sale happened. It only takes in consideration that it happened in their store under their management. So I don't like, again, we did have somebody in this situation previously in Fitchburg that said, oh, my clerk did it, and the clerk doing it isn't an acceptable excuse under the law at this point with all the education that's happened from 94 to now. But I do feel like this is, because we do have stores with good sales records, but the beat on the street from parents, students, schools, other retailers we know when we just haven't been able to catch them. We do not have any beat on the street reports. We don't have any parent complaints, school complaints. It is a situation where, there's an explanation.
And
I
I'd just like,
present to take care of business, but
and
I
I'd like,
don't think it negates the responsibility. But I want to try to see what we can do legally so we don't make an illegal decision.
yeah, and I just want to clarify one thing, and I know you don't mean it, but Mr. Dennis is no way equated with others who have stashes of stuff and are doing it. I don't think we mean to imply that.
No, what I meant is,
I know you,
Yeah,
there
no,
have been others, but I just,
In general, you're grouping me with everybody else, and I'm not everybody else. I'm me, I'm my own store, I know what I can do, and I know what I've done.
Right.
Now, if I could talk, I accept the $3,000 penalty. I will pay that today. I accept that. It's my store. I am responsible for it. I'm not here to say that this didn't happen in my store. It happened. It did happen. I admit it fully and freely. I'm willing to pay the $3,000, but I'm looking for leniency. That's what I'm looking for. If I could just keep my license and not do the penalty with suspended license, I'm willing to pay the $3,000. It's already paid out. Well, actually, $2,000. I owe you another $1,000. But I will pay it today. So there's no other meetings, no other anything. Okay. They did their job right. I'm not saying they did their job wrong. It's not. It's 100% correct. The person's been taken care of. I've done all what I can do on my side by hiring a manager, getting video. I've spent extra money. It cost me $5,000 to get this new equipment in. It's cost me $60,000 for a manager, which I could do myself. I've been doing myself for 30 years. So I'm not looking to get out of this. That's not what I'm trying to do.
you look like you started when you were 3 years old, if you've been at it 30 years. But,
I wish that was the case.
well,
so I have a new recommendation.
go ahead.
How about we could do a responsible finding, and then we could continue, the minimum is 1 day. The minimum on the first offense is 1 day, so everybody has to get minimum 1 day. So could we do find them responsible, continued without a finding, for 1 day?
1 day of what?
1 day, instead of now it's not 13 days?
No, but 1 day of what? Of not selling things or of,
1 day of not selling things.
I mean, he can open his gas station and the
Yes,
rest of
yes,
his business.
he can sell everything else, lottery, candy gum, everything else. And on a 1 day, they don't have to put it out back, they just have to cover it and just tell people we don't have tobacco today. And then it could be continued, and then, because we already have permit suspension set for the weekend of the 29th. We were going to ask to set the new suspension to start on September 29th, and you could just say, this is the outcome pending, and then I can double check with legal after. Boards have done it. They just haven't done it on youth access. They don't mess with the fines, but other boards, I have 46 towns, and I probably have 10 that have continued without a finding, to be served if there's a future violation in the 36-month tolling period. Which would mean if there's another sale to a minor, then he would have to serve the remainder of the suspension with the new violation. It's been successful because in the boards that have done that, the boards that have done that, there hasn't been another violation.
Well, any other comments or?
Or you can find him responsible and delay, continue the hearing on the permit suspension part, and then I can go back, but it does require us to come back. And I do appreciate his efforts to get a new system and do all those things, and he's here with a check, so obviously he is really here in good faith.
Well, I guess I've made my, what I would call personal feelings clear. I would prefer to see no penalties given the circumstances of this. If the law says, and I have to do what you say the law is, if it says that he must pay the fine, then I suppose he must pay the fine. And
Is that the local law or is that the state law?
Massachusetts State Sanitary Code.
That's the one day it has to be served?
One day has to be served. You cannot, you can reduce the number of days, you just can't
On the first offense.
on the first offense, but you cannot go
But
below
the
1
second,
day.
they said a minimum of 7, and the third, they said a minimum of 30, which
Right.
means it's a minimum. But I've seen other boards do it, and nothing happened on flavor. Flavor is considered a less, not as egregious as the sale to a minor, but, I mean, I'm comfortable with that, but if, I have to put it all out there as what your options are.
I wish there was a way to be more creative about this.
Yeah, well, and that's why I don't know if we can be more creative. That's why I was asking
Yeah,
for
I mean,
a
this is something
continuing.
like, I mean, if they're bringing product in from home in a backpack, I mean, they could be selling anything. I could be selling crack out of their bag. I mean,
Right.
And then he's not going to be responsible for that. I mean,
Right, but that,
especially if they were taking it out of, if they were refunding themselves the money. It's like it was sold in the store, but not on behalf of the store.
right. But, I mean, alls I can tell you is what happened. Our youth went in, they rang it in the register, gave them change, left the store. We were able to send another youth in. We did send
No, I believe it all happened.
yeah.
I'm just
no,
saying,
we sent another youth in a
one of those
third time.
situations where,
And you got rejected.
No, they pulled the Russian cream out and asked for an ID, and he didn't have an ID on him, so they put it back under the counter. So we could have issued, because the youth saw the Russian cream, a third violation for $5,000. We opted not to, because it wasn't found in a retail ed inspection.
So
and
sticking with the law
We
is-
didn't know if we were going to go out a fourth time to cut undercover. He did put he put the card down on the counter and asked for the Russian cream, and they pulled it out. And then she went, it was a woman, and she said, "Do you have an ID?"
She said she totally denied it, and he just threw I saw the situation. That was not the situation. I'm sorry to disagree with you on that one.
Well, we didn't give you a violation, so how do you even know what day or?
Because she told me about it, Darlene,
Yeah, I'm not
older
sure,
woman.
but
Yeah, I know exactly the situation it was.
Came back and reported. So at that point, he did put the card down on the table.
That's right.
So, and at that point, she asked, I'm telling you what he told us, and he asked for an ID.
so again, just to repeat,
And that was a 16-year-old youth, because when we do these inspections, just so everybody knows, we have 16 to 20. All 13 kids that are eligible to do the inspection in Fitchburg get emailed, and it's random, the first 2 that respond, and then they alternate stores to go in.
so essentially, we're talking about two violations,
Right.
May 15th and June 7th, I think it
Yes.
was.
We didn't, yeah.
So the fine for the 2 violations is
First one is 1,000.
$3,000 minimum for the 2 together.
Second one is 1,000, 2,000.
total.
And it says, sale of tobacco products may be prohibited for at least 1 day and up to 7 consecutive business days, or for longer term enacted, adopted, or promulgated in a rule. So for the second violation, you can't go before 1 day. I mean, below.
Below.
Right.
And just,
But what they don't address in there is this continued without a finding, and boards started using that, and courts use it too. And they used it in Flavor. Jody's been at multiple hearings with Flavor, and that has happened. So it doesn't address because continue without, you're found responsible, and the continue without the finding, you really only serve it if you do it again.
36 months?
Yeah, it's the tolling period of the state law, 36 months.
Yep.
And if you look above that, Steve, are you in the state law?
Yep.
If you look at a paragraph above that, it says for sale, that's for Flavor, but for sales to minor, it's minimum at least 1 day. There's another paragraph above that talks that sales to minor has to be a minimum of 1 day,
so there's no reducing it below 1 day?
No.
Anything you do?
unless you believe the sale didn't happen or you think we made a mistake.
But Ian brought up a good point, sale in response to the store. The person was selling in response for himself. Is that stipulated?
Well, I mean, it happens.
That's a yes or no
Yeah,
question.
I mean, I don't know what you're asking, because your employee in
So it
your store
actually
rang it
says-
into your register.
It says,
Yeah.
the actual terminology says related to any violation within a retail establishment shall apply against the retailer and or his or her business agent and not an employee thereof.
So employee cannot be responsible.
Yeah, just like liquor, you're responsible for everything that happens in your store, lottery, liquor, yeah. No, unfortunately. You know, this is a hard one. This is probably one of the hardest ones I've been sitting in. Nobody feels good about this. It's one of the hardest hearings that I've been in since we started this in the 90s.
So if we were to make a motion that Robert pays the $3,000 fine, can we limit the suspension to 1 day, or does that have to go be researched?
I would recommend saying 1 day with the remaining 2 in 7-day continue without a finding, and then pending no further in 36 months, and then our hearing letter would say that, and then I would, you know, you found him responsible and he's paying the fine, so I don't know, because other boards have done it. I haven't actually gone to legal and say, can they do this or can they not do this? You know, this is the first time it's come up with sales to a minor. It sets a precedent moving forward, though. And those other boards that continue without a finding will do that now in the hearing for everybody that comes before them if they appeal it.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Why was it so long in between each visit, and why was it so long for me to get the actual notices of this?
As I explained, it was
Couldn't you have the same effect a week or 2 days after?
no, under the state law, you can go 90 days without, up to 90 days without issuing. You don't have to issue it within a certain time frame. Non-criminal disposition ticket has to be issued in 21 days. In Fitchburg's other regulations for $100, $200, $300 fines, they get issued in 21 days, or it's an unissuable violation. This is not the case. What ended up happening is this happened, and we've never seen anything like this before, and we were putting together an investigation, and we sent somebody
Sorry.
in.
You saw this before? You just said you stopped
sorry?
You just said you stopped someone for $73,000, which seems to be a little worse.
I didn't find somebody for $73,000. They got busted by the Department of Revenue.
So why are you bringing that up in this situation?
No, what I was trying to say is somebody who had a very clean record with us and had no problem turned out to be the largest bust of illegal tobacco products in the state. That's all I was saying. A good record isn't indicative. If you never sold when we come in once or twice a year.
You did mention a couple. You did mention a couple of the situations
No, I
where there
wasn't
was other
referencing
people with names and so forth that did
I
that.
didn't name any stores. I'm sorry?
Didn't she say someone that had a name or something? They go into the store and say a name and they get the tobacco or whatever?
No, I was
So
just
why-
explaining to the board that this card is similar to that. When we get intel that somebody uses a special code name, we use it. This was intel, the card, that there might be something going on, that college students could go in there with a card and still get flavored tobacco. That's what we believed happened with our youth. They were given the card and said, use this card, put it down and ask for your product, and you'll get it. But you got to put the card down when you come in. So that's what we did. The second kid, he didn't even have the card out yet, and they sold to him without even him having to put the card down. So the card is what made us think that this needed to be investigated. So we didn't do it. When we got the violation on the 15th, at that time, we have violations. I have 3 inspectors going out. We do it in the order that they occurred. So it usually takes us 2 weeks to get a violation out. This one didn't get out in 2 weeks because we did further investigation and lined up other people. We had to line up kids. We had to line up per diem inspectors. We were looking at, what time of day did this happen, go back the same time of day, trying to figure out and coordinate. So we coordinated an investigation. We decided that we were going to issue it, and we issued it on the 28th. That's not considered at all. If we went to court with this clerk, it's not considered too much time later. It's well within the parameters of time that we're allowed to issue. It was because we formulated an investigation with this
It's too
particular.
bad we didn't know the circumstances before you you went through with that second investigation.
That's what I'm trying
If
to
he
get
had
at.
known after the first time, it wouldn't have happened the second time.
Right, but
I'm pretty sure of that.
what we were trying to do is find out if this was just a random sale that happened by accident, or if this was an intentional
Sounds like you knew from the first
program
time. Sounds
to
like with the
skirt
card.
law. Well, wouldn't you think if somebody, two workers, one came out from behind, came over and said, yeah, he knows what's going on, he's good, put it down, tell him how it works, wouldn't you assume that that's what's going on? I mean, that's a logical conclusion.
In business,
and
there's no
that's
assumptions. There's no
probable
assumptions
cause
in
for us to
business.
open an investigation. So this wasn't an inspection. Because of what happened in the first one, we opened an investigation.
There's no assumptions in business, first of all. Second of all, when you got the card, you should know something's going on. You've been doing this for a long time.
And we-
You would think you would know what's going on. So if I had known, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I would, if I had known on the 15th that this would have happened, or this was going to happen, or this was happening, I would have tried to get whatever I could, or whoever I could down there to do whatever I needed to do. But now there's a second time, and a third time she's saying,
I
now
understand. I
I'm
mean,
stuck.
Most of the time, it's a good idea. I mean, most of the time, the investigation would be a good idea, because there probably is something going on, and they need to investigate. And it makes sense to follow that trail.
Right.
It's just this time, it's unfortunate, because there are some mitigating circumstances that
I think
would help
what
explain
he's saying is if it hadn't been so long, he would have stopped it before even the
It would have never happened the second time. There was no way that would happen the second time. There's no way it's going to happen again. But no way it would happen the second time.
Because we wouldn't have known that, and there's been other investigations that we've had, and the owner was in on it. So we don't have that information. We just know here's a store in a location doing something illegal.
Tell you the truth, the amount of money I'm going to have to pay, I wish I was on it. I would have made my money back. Sorry to joke around, but
Well, it sounds as if we're somewhat constrained by the law in this, and I think that probably unhappily, I'll make a motion that we assess the $3,000 fine for 2 violations and one-day suspension of sales of tobacco products with any additional suspensions being held for further conduct, I guess is the way we'd put it, for a repeat hearing. But as I say, my personal feeling is Mr. Donis has suffered in many ways from personal injury to physical injury to emotional injury, I'll put it that way. And I'm unhappy to have to do that, but it sounds as if that's the law, and so I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion. And just to clarify, we're fining him $3,000 for the 2 violations, the 1-day mandatory fine for the first violation,
Suspension,
and continuing the suspension on the second fine.
Right.
Correct.
And I'll just add, I'm pretty confident we won't see Mr. Donis back here.
well, you won't.
I wish there was another way around it, but it sounds like these rules were made by somebody other than us. We didn't make the rules. They've been worked on for a long time. I know many years ago, we started work with the Fitchburg Youth Commission and Dr. Joe DeFranza to stop this kind of sale to minors because of the consideration that this was a gateway drug. So it sounds like Joan, you're doing a thorough investigation, and I appreciate that. And it sounds like as the owner of my favorite gas station, you're doing the best that you can do there also, and that you're taking the best action that you can. And there's,
Thank you.
so.
Okay.
Joan, is that because one of the things you had said is to put this on a suspension, or put this on hold. If that were to happen, would he still need to pay the fine?
Yes.
Okay.
You're responsible for the assessment of the fines and continued 1-day suspension, continued the remaining 12 days, 3, remaining 2 and 7, because they are separate violations. you'd continue the remaining days without a finding. And then he'll get a hearing outcome letter that explains that, and then it gets put into the record. We put it in the database. I put continue without a finding into the state database. No one's come back and said anything about it. And we put it in the database, and then if there's a violation, we go to the database and track back and go, okay, yeah, oh, their violation dropped off, or oh wait, it's still in play. Now we got to do, there's a special letter that would say, this has been, you continue without a finding, but you have had a violation. We're reinstituting the first suspension before we go into the next one.
So by making the motion and seconding the motion, we're taking action on that today. We're not putting it on hold.
That's Dr. Baldessarian's motion right now. He's not making a motion to put it on hold.
Do you have an opinion on what's going to be the best outcome for you? To put this on hold or to just move forward with it today?
I mean, if there's no way around the one-day suspension, I mean, I'm facing a brand-new store right across the street from me, and who's underpriced me in gas all the time. I have no way of doing that because they're 60 stores big and I'm one. I don't have the buying power they have. I don't have anything they have. So the suspension is going to dramatically hurt me way more than the money ever will. I could give you $10,000 right now. This suspension will hurt me way more than that $10,000 will, by far. Because people will just walk across the street and go that want to buy tobacco and maybe not come back. So 9 years of hard work for two individuals that took advantage of the situation is painful.
Yeah, I think we're all very sorry for that. And as I say, if we weren't constrained by the legality of it, I think we wouldn't be doing anything, but I guess that's the law. And
Law is made for major corporations and not for the little guy. The little guy always gets hurt.
I was a little guy too, I know what you're saying. All right, any other comments or?
I think Diane has to
You know, what's that?
I think you have to vote.
I'd vote to go along with your recommendation. Let's move it forward. We're all going forward. We're going to move forward.
And I just want to bring up one other thing. Before we even started this hearing, there were some comments made about this particular Board of Health and its unfriendliness to business in Fitchburg in general. Joan, you're involved in the state, and you go to other Board of Health member meetings. You, I think, are familiar with tobacco regulations through the state. Have you, in all truth, have you found Fitchburg's Board of Health to be an outlier, to be unfriendly to business locally as compared to other boards of health in the state?
What are you asking me? If I find Fitchburg to be what?
Unfriendly to business?
No, not at all.
That we're harsh on small business, that we...
Oh, this is a state law, and everybody has been well educated in it. All retailers have received education from the governor's office, the Department of Revenue's office, the Department of Public Health office, our office. We give them packets every year. We went long before. We did a year and a half of warnings before we issued fines. And we work with all retailers to, I'm accessible. Everybody has our numbers in the letters, so we'll give them additional retail education. So boards take that all in consideration. It's very rare a board finds somebody not responsible. I haven't found any board find somebody not responsible for a sale to a minor.
No, and this...
Nobody likes it. We haven't had any not responsible findings in 46 communities. And we have communities that have way more active not violations than Fitchburg.
Yeah. My question was not really related to this particular hearing, but comments were made before we even started it that this particular Board of Health is unfriendly to business, and it makes it difficult to have business in Fitchburg because the Board of Health is difficult. And it sounds as if, with your experience across the state, that we're not really an outlier. We adhere to state laws. We don't have particular regulations that go beyond what others do.
There's nothing that you've done that goes beyond. Every one in the state is following these regulations.
Thanks so much.
It's a state law.
Well, I think that concludes the tobacco hearing, and
Did you vote? Yes.
I think we did vote
Yes.
Oh, okay.
on that motion.
Okay,
It
before you conclude, I just want to set so it's in the minutes, the date of the one day. The suspensions always start on a Friday, and it's usually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For a 3-day, for a 7-day, it's a Friday through a Thursday. I don't, it has to be a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Is one of those days better for you, the 29th, 30th, or the October 1st, Sunday? I mean, that's one little thing we can do to make it a little easier.
I appreciate that. Sunday would be beneficial.
Okay, so
Please.
we'll put it for October 1st?
Please.
Okay.
I want to thank the board, by the way. I know that that wasn't me that said that earlier. I don't know who said that, but I appreciate.
No, it wasn't you.
Just want to make that clear. I appreciate and I abide by anything that the board puts forward to us business owners, so
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your understanding. It's not easy.
And I also want to offer, Robert, we can give any current employees you have, we can come in and do education in person. We can do a small gathering in person. We could book a room at City Hall and have them come. If you're ever in a position again where you're going to be out, we can come right in and let every single employee that works for you know what their responsibility is to avoid any future things if you have any other type of absence that you need to have.
I appreciate that, but my new manager and myself are both tip certified, so we both know about IDing and tobacco and alcohol IDing. So with my new manager there, she's more than qualified. I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Joan,
you.
I want to thank you for your educating us, and you have a hard job, too. You don't make, I'm sure, a lot of friends doing this, but it is something that's important to the health of the whole community. I think it's important to keep tobacco out of the hands of those who shouldn't, and mouths of those who shouldn't be using it. The more people who accept that, the better off we'll all be. I know it's a difficult job to have, difficult to convince people that it's best for them, but thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanna
Thank you.
take a quick recess and we'll organize?
Sorry.
Quick recess and to organize for the next hearing?
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess just so we can organize. And again, thank you for everyone who attended the tobacco hearing. I think we can reconvene for this September 7th, 2023 meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Health. I would introduce myself as Dr. John Bogdasarian, chairperson of the Board of Health. We have Stephen Curry over here, the director, and Ian Murray and Diane Tousignan, also members of the Board of Health. The reason for this hearing today is due to written requests of John Mills of 88 St. Joseph's Avenue and Ashley Cragen of 78 St. Joseph Avenue, Ann Cragen of 78 St. Joseph Avenue, petitioning this board to deem that the dogs owned by Samuel O. Souza and Paula Souza of 102 St. Joseph Avenue be deemed nuisance dog and dangerous dogs according to MGL 140, Section 157. This is a formal hearing in which the petitioner and other affected parties shall be given an opportunity to be heard, to present witnesses or documentary evidence, and to show whether the dogs kept at 102 St. Joseph Avenue are a nuisance and or dangerous dogs according to MGL 140, Section 157. Please note every notice, order, or other record prepared by the Board of Health in connection with the hearing shall be entered as a matter of public record in the office of the Board of Health. At this hearing, the Board of Health will make a decision whether the dog at 102 St. Joseph Avenue should be deemed a dangerous dog and or a nuisance dog, or to dismiss the complaint according to MGL 140, Section 157, Section 4. I ask that we all respect each other. Anyone not respectful of others or becomes belligerent will be asked to leave. At this time, I would like all persons who plan to give testimony at this hearing, please to raise your right hand, anyone giving testimony, and understand that you are testifying under oath. So if you're going to be testifying, if you wouldn't mind raising your right hand. And do you solemnly swear and confirm the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth? Everyone does? I ask if there are any documents that you wish to be entered. Please introduce each document for the record as Exhibit 1, and then 2, 3, and 4, etc. If there are objections to the exhibits, then I, as Board of Health Chair, will decide if it should be introduced. At the end of the meeting, the Board of Health must decide whether the dogs at 102 St. Joseph Avenue should be deemed nuisance dogs and or dangerous dogs, or to dismiss the complaint according to MGL 140, Section 157-4. At this time, we shall begin the hearing with the petitioners, Ms. Ann Cragen, then Ms. Ashley Cragen, and then Mr. John Mills. So anyone speaking, if you would come to the podium, it's just that there's a microphone there. You can sit at the table or stand there, and just makes it easier to hear.
Hi. Just make sure you can hear me okay.
Again, if you would just introduce yourself and indicate where you live.
My name is Ashley Cragen. And what was the second part?
Where you live, I'm sorry.
I live at 78 St. Joseph Ave on the second floor.
Okay.
Is that all you need from me right now?
Yes, everyone can hear.
My name is Ann Cragen. I live on the first floor of 78 St. Joseph Avenue, the owner of the property.
Okay. If you want, you could actually do your testimony first, and then we'll just introduce once and speak once. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
My name's Ashley Cragen. I've lived at St. Joe's Ave for a couple of years now. And when I first started living there about, I think it's like 3 years ago, there was 2 little white fluffies, I think, that lived at the residence. They were always kept in the crate outside all day long, but we're able to get away with it during the warm weather because they have an AC that's attached to it. I should also know I'm a vet tech, so I kind of take this more seriously about the animal care. I don't know all the laws and regulations, but I did end up reporting it to the MSPCA as well, and they deemed because the animal control has been dealing with this, it's not a concern for them. So I've lived at this house, and they started off with 2, it could have been 3 little dogs all in the same time. They stay inside during the winter time but they are outside all day long and all night during the summertime. In the last year, I believe, they got 2 German Shepherds. The 2 German Shepherds are now in a small cage outside all day long. So the little dogs always have barked, but we've been able to tolerate it. It was not as repetitive. It's since they've gotten the 2 German Shepherds, the barking is nonstop. They'll be outside, and the dogs are just barking. They don't try to quiet them down. They don't put them inside. And I can't even have my windows open, and I can still hear the dogs inside my house. I do have several videos, but none of them are 10 minutes long. I'm not comfortable going by their house and taking a video of them because I don't know them. So all I'm looking for really is just for them to do something with the dogs. I don't care if they get rid of them or not. I'm not saying that. What I just want is the dogs to stop barking. And my grandmother went through lung cancer this year, and she's been home all summer. She can't even open her window. She can't even enjoy the outside. So I'm really more upset at that as well, because this is our neighborhood too. She's lived in this house for 80 years, her family, and we've never been so embarrassed before to have to come forward and do this much. And we're not people who call the police and do these things. We've talked to animal control. Animal control has reached the maximum amount of things they can do. They have fined them. They have gone on the premises. The female officer refuses to go on the premises anymore because there was an interaction with a police officer and one of the men on the property. So again, that's what I have for you.
Could I ask a question before we take the next person?
Sorry, I'm nervous.
Nothing to be, I don't bite, so.
Public speaking, okay.
So you live at 78 St. Joseph Avenue?
Yep.
And the dogs are at 102
Yep.
St. Joseph
So
Avenue?
they're the third house down from us.
Okay, so they're not right next door, they're a couple...
3 houses down.
And you can still hear them?
Yes.
And from what time to what time do you...
Various times of the
typically
day.
hear?
Usually, I feel like 7 o'clock is when it starts. It's very in and out throughout the day. I've heard them even at night. Sometimes if I can't sleep, I'll sleep in my guest bedroom, and that's when I hear it most overnight. I'm lucky that I have the AC on and my TV on in my bedroom, so I don't hear it in my personal bedroom. But I've heard them at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I've called the police several times, and the last time I called, it was the following morning after I had just had it that night, and I finally called at a reasonable hour. The police officers laughed at me and said I'm making a phone call at 10 a.m. for a noise complaint, and I said yes, because I've been listening to the dogs all night. I just need to sleep, you know? There just comes a point where you just don't know what else to do anymore. I yelled out the window that day, shut the dogs up, you know? Like, how many times how does it not annoy them? You know, how are they letting it happen all day long, intermittently, all day long?
So there may be 5 dogs, and all 5 of them bark at one another?
Mostly the 2 Shepherds are the most now, but they start, and then the other 3 dogs will get going. But mostly the 2 Shepherds are the barking ones, and they're the louder ones. Bigger dogs, louder barks.
And just again, because for definition benefit here, this is really a noise complaint, as you
Yes,
pointed out.
I don't think that the dogs pose any harm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was,
Besides their voice.
all right. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Is that all you need from me?
Sorry?
Is there anything else that you need from me?
Well, there might be, so don't run away.
Okay.
But we'll let the next person speak.
Well, Ashley has pointed out a lot, but I will say we are 4 houses down from 102. When they moved in, there were small dogs. They were kept in a cage in the backyard, and they're yappy, and we tolerated that. But the German Shepherds, they're bigger dogs, bigger bark, and they barked day and night. And I'm home, I'm retired, so I hear them probably more than most of the neighbors. We have recordings of the dogs barking, sometimes 2 minutes long, sometimes 3 minutes long. Those are the sessions. However, one afternoon I was trying to enjoy my deck. The dogs barked from 12:47 to 3:06 in the afternoon. So that was 12:47 p.m. to 3:06. So this is an example of what goes on. This can be in the morning, this can be in the afternoon, this can be in the evening. This can be several times during the day. My great-granddaughters have stayed over, said the dogs kept us up all night. Ashley is my tenant. She had guests over this summer. Those people, same thing. The dogs bark, kept them up. The other day I woke up at 1, the dogs were barking. My neighbor, John Mills, has told me the dogs are up 4 or 5 in the morning. So again, because they're larger dogs, they're got a good strong bark. I don't always have my AC on, so I have to tolerate this. I've had other neighbors have pointed it out to me. I'm sorry they haven't showed up, but some of them have made complaints and with no results, so they are fed up. And the dogs are not dangerous because they are kept in a cage, but I'm very concerned about their, whether they're being abused by being in the cage. I can't understand day and night dogs being out in the cage and why they don't bring them in. So that's pretty much it. I do have the recordings, and, I'm 4 houses down. They're not as loud as what I actually have to hear, but they, it's constant. And mostly because of the German Shepherds coming in, they seem to probably get the other small ones barking. I mean, I've been told they're in a shed, but I actually have recordings where you can hear both the little ones and the big ones barking. If they were in a shed, I don't think I would hear them that much. And it's pretty hot this week, and I recorded them this morning out there barking.
So again, you said 4 houses down, so there are 3 houses or 2 houses in between, maybe 3?
My house, there's 2, and then his house.
Okay.
Yep.
So have the neighbors in between you two complained as well? Or?
There's a neighborhood that was built in 1920s. My house is 1924. We pretty much live on top of each other. We don't have a lot of land. And I've actually heard there's chickens coming, so if that's the case, I'm even concerned. This isn't farm. This is close neighborhoods, and it can be pretty noisy without having to hear the dogs on top of each other barking all day.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks very much. Did you want to add something? Or?
So John Mills is the other one. He lives in between us as well. He's the one who's had the most contact with animal control as well for future. Okay.
Mr. Mills isn't here?
He's not here.
Okay.
I'm not sure why. So
Mr. Mills is the only one that actually checked off in his complaint that the dogs have a vicious disposition.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay. He does live closer, so I don't know anything about that.
So Mr. Mills is not here.
He's not here
tonight. Okay. Good enough.
Yeah, he may be at work.
So we've heard from Ashley and Ann. Those are moral support folks sitting in the back, I presume? Okay.
I'm Ann's daughter, and I have been over to the house on several occasions, and I have...
Ma'am?
Oh, I can, yeah. I'm Amy Minichello, and I'm Ann's daughter. And I have been over to my mother's house several occasions. My father was sick. I spent the night. I heard the dogs bark all night long. I laid on their couch at the other end of their house, and those barks were constant all night. And they kept me up. I don't even live in the house. I go to my mother's house. We can't sit on the deck because the dogs are barking all day. I was in her kitchen the other day. I go, "Is that the dogs I hear?" She goes, "Yep." I said, "I've been here for an hour and a half, and they haven't stopped." She said, "I know. That's the way it is all day." I said, "And you've voiced complaints?" She said, "Yep, we've done everything." I said, "You've called the police?" "Yep." I said, "Okay, you've done everything you can." She talked to the counselor, Sam. I'm not sure Sam's last name, though. And she said Sam's been up to investigate it. And that's finally how we got something to actually be done about it. But it's to the point you can't go outside your house. I mean, we should be able to sit. There is a law for dog barking in Fitchburg. I printed it out before I came. We should be able to sit and enjoy our property. We pay enough in city taxes. I don't understand why they're not able to. And I don't even live there, and I have to listen to it. And I'm over there at least 5 times a week. So, and I know John's working, and I know we were promised to have the meeting later, and that's why John couldn't attend today. So, unfortunately, and I also know that the other neighbors came to my parents and asked them to complain. Because the neighbor on... The Jarvis, Mrs. Jarvie, came to my mother one day. My mother was out walking. My parents walk every day. Nobody goes by the house because nobody wants the dogs to come out. So they walk around, and they went by Mrs. Jarvie's house, and Mrs. Jarvie said, I have called the police so many times, the police asked me to stop calling. She goes, so I can't complain anymore. She goes, so I need somebody else to stand up.
She's directly behind the house, so her yard is right up.
And I also know that there is another neighbor that Bushman, right? Am I saying that right? Mr. Bushman talked to, and he lives up from us, and he complained. There are several complaints. They've all been lodged to the animal officer, and they've all been lodged to the police. So.
If anybody would like to speak, please come to the microphone.
And I think that's it.
Thank you for the comments. Appreciate it. Any other individuals who want to speak regarding the noise? I think Steve pointed out that Mr. Mills was the only individual who indicated that the dogs had a vicious disposition. I just want to clarify, none of you has apparently felt threatened that you were going to be bit?
None of
or
us. None of
was
us
it
feel
danger?
threatened by the dogs.
Right. Okay. Thanks so much. Well, I guess we can ask Mr. Souza to speak with regard to his side of the story.
All right. My name is Samuel Souza. I'm here special. I feel how you guys are feeling about that whole situation. 2 of those dogs are rescue dogs from the community. We feel, I understand, and we will work on them. We put in collars. I just hire people to go there, training to take care of that situation. And certainly I hear, I'm glad that you guys are interested in resolving the problem, but nobody came to me. There are days that I come from work, I hear people yelling, but you know what I'm saying? So, and my dogs, they are huge and they bark, but we are working on them. It's not because we don't care. Not much I can do. I'm training, I'm doing whatever I can do to resolve the problem. I'm willing to do, even, I don't know, accept help somehow. I don't need, but to make it faster, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm doing the best I can do by having them trained, work on them, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I recently have my newborn babe. That's the biggest reason why for one day, my female German Shepherd kind of barked a lot for the whole night because we had to take her out of the house. One day, she barks a lot. After that, she gets used to it outside. And when she was inside, she barks because she wants to go outside. You know what I'm saying? So we're doing the best we can. We are good people. We don't want to bother anybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to, I don't know. We are working on the dogs. Just like when I read the complaint saying we don't care about the dogs, we're doing bad things to the dog. I'm like, you said yourself, my brother's dog has AC on them. I didn't even put AC on my house yet. And my dogs are being very take care of it. The only problem is that one dog, that one day that went out and barked. And every time my dog sees somebody walking down the street, he's gonna bark. One bark, the other one barks. Then they calm down. They are dogs.
Yeah, and we want you to understand we're not in any way saying you're a bad person because your dogs bark. It has nothing to do with the kind of person you are. But the concern has to be, what do the dogs mean to the neighbors and to the community in terms of any threats, which doesn't sound as if they are physical threats, or any annoyance or nuisance that they can provoke. Mm-hmm. And I think we're here to try to decide, first of all, is the dog or are the dogs nuisance dogs, number one? And number two, if so, what can we do to help so they're not nuisance dogs, or what should we do about it? I think both of you just want to, I don't think they're against your having dogs. They're not against you. They're just against the dogs making so much noise they can't have a peaceful life.
Yes.
So I think that's really what this is about. It's not to say anybody's good or bad here. It's just what the dogs are doing.
Nobody is against him having the dogs. I have a dog in my house. My neighbors have dogs. There's pretty much dogs almost in every house in the neighborhood. His is the only one that barks that much.
No,
Now, I do understand that there was a small baby in the house, but why'd you get the dogs in the first place? You knew the baby was coming. You're not keeping your dogs. We keep the dogs in the house as pets. Now, they're in a cage. They're in the backyard. I can barely see them. I know they can't see me. So if they're barking every time somebody's coming by, why? They can't see us. I can barely see them.
No.
Can be animals running, yes, in the yard at night. I can see that's the reason. But bring the dogs in your house. They're your pets. You bring them in the house.
Yeah.
If you can't stand them barking in your house, I don't want to be the one that has to listen to them.
No, I think that's very clear. And I don't think it's so much what's making the dogs bark or why they bark. It's just that they're barking. We can't stop people from walking by the house if that's what's making them bark. It sounds as if you put 5 dogs together, you know, they're going to have a party every day and talk, and that's what they do. They bark at one another, and that's how they behave. So it's too bad dogs don't get laryngitis. Eventually they would stop, you know. But but do you have any questions or comments?
As a dog owner, we have always had 1 or 2 dogs. We live in an area where there are not a lot of other neighbors. When we have only 1 dog now, we've always had German Shepherds, but we don't now. We have a pit bull. I say she's the sweetest pit bull in Fitchburg. When she is out, if we're not out with her, she barks. Maybe once or twice we bring her in because she wants to be with us. If another person on a bike or on a car comes up our driveway, she barks whether she's in or out because she knows this is what's going on. This is her level of excitement or her way of showing, hey, I know what's going on here too. That's how dogs are. In hearing the complaints, it was making me get a little agitated. I'll be honest with you, because I cannot stand a barking dog. That's personal. The majority of the neighbors are affected by this, and it doesn't seem like you have helped the situation, or maybe you weren't completely aware until now. We have to all get together and talk about this. But there is a certain amount of responsibility that comes with any pet, any dog, cat, goat, chickens, whatever. There's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. And I think that's what your neighbors are hoping for, is that by all coming together that there's going to be more responsibility on your part to let them be able to relax in their neighborhood also. And it sounds like this has been going on for a while, or it's at least been going on all summer, but then it looked like there was another complaint that was filed last year. So this is a long time to be...
2 dogs exacerbated it?
Sure, German Shepherds, they're noisy.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah. They're great dogs, but they make a lot of noise.
That's the other item, and I do understand, he said we didn't go to him. No, we went to the correct channels. We called the dog officer. That's the correct channel. We don't want animosity between the neighbors, so we went to the official channels that we are supposed to do in this town. And we went over a year ago. So when he says nobody told him, they've gone to his house several times. We even had, because there was a problem, the dog officer felt threatened going to his house, that they had to enlist the police. So now the police has to escort the dog officer every time she goes to this, every time a complaint comes up, the dog officer has to call the police. The police have to escort her to this house. And my son is a police officer, and I know that for a fact. So I can't believe that he wasn't aware that this is a problem, since they have visited his house on numerous occasions. And that's why we're at the point that we're at, because we went through all the proper channels. So I do agree with you that it is bothering the whole neighborhood.
Ashley?
Most people are not going to just go to your house and complain to you either. I had a situation with another dog in the neighborhood that was off leash. I have a dog that's reactive. I know that he's reactive. I keep him on leash. He stays in the house with me all the time. I have a pit bull too. And he was a rescue, so I understand. And if you go by the house, he barks. I totally understand where he's coming from. I just want him to bring the dogs in the house. Maybe if he keeps the big dogs in the house, I understand he has a child at home. I'm pregnant. I'm 7 weeks pregnant, and it's new. Sorry. I don't want to deal with it for the next 9 months either, you know? When I have a baby, I have to think about what I'm going to do with my dog, but I'm going to make it work, because that's what we do when we have family members, because pets are family members to me. So I'm sorry that we didn't go to you, but we've already had instances in the neighborhood with other people when we've tried to go and approach them about dog issues. And all that it got is the police called and arguments and tensions. So we skipped that this time because we didn't want a repeat of what happened last time with another neighbor. Okay?
Thank you. I see the dog officers sitting in the back. Are there any comments you wanted to make, or no? Just giving opportunity if you don't have to if you do.
The arguments are very valid. We have been out to the house probably at the beginning of August, mid-August. So at that point, if you wasn't aware of the problems before, at that point you would have been aware of the problems. You weren't there when we went there. Your brother was there. It's been an ongoing issue before the German Shepherds were even there. It's not that I'm afraid to go onto the property. It's that when I've gone onto the property in the past, he wouldn't allow me on the property. So that's why I bring an officer with me, because the brother absolutely refused to let me on the property. So I'm not afraid to go there. I'm just not being allowed to go there, and that's why I call the officers. So, and I have been out there twice recently. The first time when I spoke with everybody, I get the most calls from John. He has told me that the barkings happened at 4:30 in the morning. I heard the barking the first time I went out there. When we went to the house with the officer, I did not hear any barking that day. So at that time.
I'm sorry, was Mr. Souza's brother who said you could not go on the property, or?
He refused to. I went with Todd, and he refused to allow me on the property. I'd been out there multiple times. This was last year. I had left multiple notices. He had never returned any of my requests for him to call. So then I left a fine, and that's when he called. And then I went out with Todd, and he refused to allow me on the property.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Welcome.
I have a question, if I may. Sure. Are you aware of how many dogs are actually there?
As far as I know, there are 5. There's 3 small dogs and 2 German Shepherds.
And in your opinion, well, you haven't been on the property, correct?
Todd has been.
Okay.
When the 3 little dogs were there, I don't know. I think he's been there when the German Shepherds were there.
That's okay. He can come up in a minute if that's okay.
Yeah.
My last question was, in your opinion, is there something that Mr. Souza can do to help correct the problem?
Yeah.
Would love to hear it.
You can bring them in the house. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? I was just going to say that we're given certain definitions, and I think these dogs, I'll say it in plural, fit the definition of nuisance dogs. A nuisance dog is a dog that by excessive barking or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or by excessive barking causing damage or other interference. A reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment. Or the rest, I don't think is pertinent, being a threat to attack livestock or people. So I think these dogs do fit the definition of annoyance or of nuisance. We occasionally babysit for a couple of dogs whose parents or owners travel once in a while, and so we take on these two little dogs, and they come with a little collar that's on them that every time they bark, I think it's kind of like an electric fence. It's not a torture, but they feel something that makes them not inclined to bark, and they don't, or they do, but it doesn't last long. I mean, they might do it once or twice, and then they remember that they're punished every time they do it. It's not human punishment. It's this little electric collar that does it. It sounds to me, I don't know if that's something you know about or have thought about.
I tried that. That's when I have the trainee going to my house. He even advised me not to do that at all. He told me not to do. He's totally against the collar that shocks, that vibrates. He's kind of teaching me techniques to kind of, okay, you gotta, I don't know how to put that in words, but like kind of like the dog kind of gonna he wanna please you, not doing by force.
Mm-hmm.
As he understood the process of doing that, and he said
you want the carrot, not the stick.
Yeah. And he said it's gonna take a little longer because once again it was a rescue dog. I don't know what the dog went through, because my female German Shepherd, she don't barks at all. I doubt anybody has any video or anything that shows she stays quiet. The male, the one that I rescue, is the one that when I walk in the house, he barks. I go there, he stops. He sees somebody, he barks.
Yeah.
He's the only one that...
Well, I guess our job is to stop this dog from being a nuisance. So,
yes.
You know, I think obviously there's a whole spectrum of possibilities. One could be you get rid of the dog so it's not there anymore. I'm not telling you that that's it. I'm just saying that's a possibility. Another end of the spectrum is you put the dog down. So, and I don't want you to do those things. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but what's the purpose of the community? Like, I adopted, I literally took the dog from a place that people couldn't take care of him because I feel compassion for the dog.
I understand. I'm with you. I'm for you. I'm hoping it'll work out. And I'm just giving you the worst solutions, not good ones. So in between, there's got to be some way to make them stop this. You say it's one of them, the one German Shepherd, the other one doesn't bark.
So, it's a sweetheart.
Would it be that bringing that dog in the house would solve the problem? Would it be trying the collar anyway would solve the problem? But I think we have to ask that something be done because these folks are...
And once again, I'm
having an unpleasant time at their own house.
Exactly. No, I bring them, I walk with them, I do things with them. The only reason I'm not bringing them to the house yet, because of the little baby, it has nothing to do with the barking. It's just like, I'm kind of like to keep the kid in a clean place, that's all. That's why I separate the newborn with the dog. But I'm willing, if that's, you know what I'm saying, even if I have to kind of clean my basement, make a space in the basement, you know what I'm saying, where it's not going to be near the baby, sure.
Well, you may have to do something like that because it's not fair to these folks to have to listen to it. And if it's just one dog, it makes it a lot easier. Sounds like the three little ones were somewhat tolerable. Not to say that we want them to continue, but if it's a question of maybe sequestering or putting the one dog that barks in a place where he's not going to do it, or maybe you can build I have an audiometer in my office. It's soundproof. You can put it in there. But something to control the noise. It doesn't sound as if this dog is a dangerous dog, or any of your dogs is a dangerous dog. I don't think anyone feels threatened. It's mostly the nuisance. And obviously, we don't want you to have to give the dog away or to put the dog down, but there must be some kind of solution that you can come up with that we could ask you to do within a certain time frame, and then get a report back from folks to understand if it's been successful.
I have a recommendation. If he's working with the trainer, maybe the trainer can give him steps on how he can introduce the dog to the baby. That might be a step. I don't know what his game plan would have been come winter. We're going into winter time. So I know things take time, and I know what it's like having a rescue dog, but I don't know how he plans to bring the dog in the house in the winter if he's not at least working on it now.
I wonder why the dog was given up for rescue in the first place. Probably too noisy. I don't know. No. You know, I think it's wonderful that people do rescues. I love dogs. We've always had them ourselves, and I would do anything to allow you to keep the dog and work with the dogs, but it has to be in a situation that makes it reasonable for the neighbors too. So,
I'd like to add just one more thing. Are you David?
I'm sorry?
Is your name David? Your
what?
name?
Oh, Samuel Souza.
Samuel. Who is David?
My brother.
Okay. So sometimes, this is just my own feeling, sometimes when there's more than one person in a home taking care of a pet, everybody has a different idea about what should happen. You have a new baby, so nobody wants that baby waking up. When a baby finally gets to sleep, that's like, oh, everybody can take a deep breath, except the neighbors who are now like nervous or upset or agitated because the dogs are out and now they're barking, but the baby's sleeping, and I'm happy for that. But it's important, I think, also for the adults in a home to all be on the same page with how we're going to manage this barking situation. And I don't know whether your brother has met with the dog officer and that didn't go so well. So maybe there are different feelings about how to manage a barking dog. So that's, you got to get on the same page with that if there's going to be any resolution. When the dogs are barking outside, they cannot be outside. They've got to come in, and maybe not everybody is going to agree with that because we got a baby inside, and it gets messy when you have family all trying to work together, and we have the community trying to get comfortable.
I would add a little bit to that idea of consistency is very important when you're training a dog. You just have to be very consistent with whatever method you decide on. I used to foster dogs. Some of them were problem dogs. I'm not an animal behaviorist, so I can't tell you what to do, but from my own experience, I can tell you that, when we get barky dogs like that, a lot of times they weren't well socialized with other animals or people. So maybe you're taking the dogs out to the dog park, and that also adds exercise in.
I do that. I do that too.
And so if they're getting a lot of exercise, especially a German Shepherd gets a ton of exercise. So if they're getting exercises and they're getting socialized around people and other dogs, I mean, that's going to help. I mean, maybe in the meantime, the idea is to bring the dog in the house. But maybe if you continue to work with it and with the training and all these other things, then maybe they can go back outside again for a little while, maybe. But you have to get that under control. And you can. I mean, we're calling it a nuisance dog, but it's not the dog. The dog's inherently not a nuisance. It's all in how you're training it, and I believe you want to do the right thing. So if you have a trainer that you're working with now, I think you should continue that. And I'll tell you, it's not enough to work with a trainer while they're there. You just have to keep doing it.
It's like the trainer said. It's more my work now.
It's your work. It absolutely is going to be your job.
Not the dog itself. It's the time that I.
Yeah, I don't know as if we have a solution for you in how to make this dog stop barking. We're not dog trainers, but I think it would be reasonable for us to ask that you find a way somehow, no matter what it is, to control the barking. We put a time limit on this, and if we maybe we can have a follow-up in whatever period of time we decide upon. Hold one sec. And then we can decide further what to do depending on what's happened in that time frame. Would that seem reasonable to you?
Yes.
I know I'm here for another matter, but there is a new unruly dog trainer on Lunenburg Street, right next to my gas station. He does mainly unruly dogs and dogs that are uncontrollable, out of control, barking and manners. He's on Lunenburg Street, right next to Patriot Grass, across the street from Dippin' Donuts.
Is that where the Dr. Walker's orthodontic practice? In that
But I've seen and heard of some of these dogs that go in there. I don't know if that's a situation you want to look at. Just a suggestion, sorry.
Thank you.
Samuel, are you the main caretaker for the dog?
Yes.
Are you the one who's at home most of the time during the day and in the evening?
During the evening, yes.
In the evening?
Yes.
Who is home during the day that's also going to be a main caretaker for the dogs?
My nephews, my wife. He's stay home now.
Yep. Well, that's important to get the people who are going to be in the home all on the same page.
Oh, yes.
That's my strongest recommendation. Let's get on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll ask other members of the board, what do you think would be a fair and appropriate time frame to say we would want to hear some improvement?
Well, I think considering that this goes back a long way, we should make it a little bit shorter.
We meet again in a month?
I'm thinking, a couple of weeks, and then we get some feedback for our next meeting.
Yeah, it just, I'm recognizing that it may take a little while to train a dog. I don't know if that's going to happen in 2
Give it
weeks.
to our next meeting, which is a month.
I was going to think more in terms of a couple months, but
Well, I think he has to take care of he has to take
that's
care
why
of
I asked.
No, thank
He's
you.
not going to fix the dog in a couple months, but he's going to fix the barking by bringing the dog inside.
Excuse me. So you're saying to bring it full time inside the house, or like bring inside the house, outside? Because like
You're going to have to do something so the dog's not barking.
yes,
You know, you just raised an interesting, are these dogs spayed or neutered?
no.
No, okay.
I just have one more question. I'm just listening to you, and you seem to be just talking about one dog. I do want you to realize that the other dogs are barking too. So if he just takes the one German Shepherd that barks when he's home, what about the German Shepherd that barks when he's not home? And what about the 3 other dogs? I have proof that he has all 5 licensed dogs.
Yep.
They are all licensed.
No, we,
I looked up the licenses today.
no, we.
So there are 5. That is my concern, that if he just brings 1 in, we're still going to have to listen to the other 4.
No, I think we're asking that for quiet, whether it's 1 dog or 5 dogs.
I agree, but I'm just saying it seems, and I'm listening to him, that the understanding is he's just going to bring in 1.
The board has to decide
That's
whether
what we're
all 5 of them are nuisances.
Right.
There is 5 dogs, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 little, two German Shepherds. Yeah. Well,
if I might suggest a trainer.
well, first of all, can I back you up a little? I would like to make a motion that to consider all 5 dogs as nuisance dogs and none of them as a dangerous dog. I would start there. Does anyone want to change that or add to that?
I'll second that motion.
I mean, I don't think we can say dog A or dog B is a nuisance. I think if we say all 5 are somehow responsible, they're all nuisances. They're lovable, but they're nuisances, and but none of them is a dangerous dog. So that I would move to say that first.
I agree. Yep.
So
We're
I
all
think
in agreement.
we're all in agreement about that.
Okay.
The second motion would be that the nuisance, the barking, be controlled in, I'll be more liberal, I'll say 2 months. because I don't think you can train a dog. At least we have a dog we're working on. It takes a little time. So I would be interested in hearing back in 2 months if there's been progress or not. I don't think we have to make a recommendation necessarily on how to do it. We're not dog trainers, but I think it's fair to ask that it be done so that these folks can have peaceful existence. So we'll just ask you to find a way, whether it's going to the dog on Lunenburg Street or a dog trainer or collars or voice box removals, whatever you want to do. Neutering, I don't know. It's outside my expertise, but I think it's not unreasonable to ask that it be done in 2 months. We could either leave it that if we don't hear from anyone in 2 months that it's been solved, or we can reconvene in 2 months, ask you to come back and give us a progress report, whatever works for everyone.
Will we reach out to animal control if there's an issue, or will we reach out to you?
You would come back to us in 2 months if you want to make a formal appointment to come back in 2 months and talk again, or if you would rather just let us know.
Yeah, that's what I mean, for the letting you know. So if we didn't reconvene in 2 months, how would we reach out to you if there was an issue? Would we just email back and forth like we've done?
Sorry, but it has to go to animal control.
Okay,
You can
so
also make the complaint to us, but
Yep.
we're not
Yep, we
24/7
understand.
like they are.
Yeah, so if there's an issue we will contact animal control and they will be in charge of reaching out to you guys.
Yes.
And I think we're okay with not reconvening in 2 months.
That fair enough then? To you also? Then I would make a motion that we allow 2 months to bring the dog barking, the nuisance, under control. And that we ask for a progress report from you, one way or the other, in 2 months. Is it better? Is it acceptable, or is it not? And then we'll make a further decision what to do based on that report. Again, I'm very pleased to see, sometimes we've done dog hearings where the neighbors hate each other, and it's a question of what's worse, the animal or the people who own them. I don't think that's a problem here.
Barking leads us, but we don't hate them.
Yeah.
It leads us to, go crazy.
I think the problem is specific, it's the noise, so that's good to hear. So I think we'll get a trustworthy and bona fide feedback. So
I'll second that motion and just say that I know you can do it in 2 months. And I said, I was going to say shorter, but I'm thinking of it a little differently now. With a baby in the house, I mean, you might as well train it right. I don't want you to take it inside and, it's attacking your child. We don't want that either. So take the time to train all the dogs correctly and work with them, and I'm sure you can do it.
Well, it seems like we're all moving forward. I think if you've been listening to barking for as long as people have been listening to it, and maybe even people are in your own home when the dogs are in, they don't want the barking either. Nobody wants the barking. I think 2 months is a long time, but it seems like we're going to go forward with the plan for 2 months, and I wish you the best. And you also.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Did you
other-
want to speak?
I've been there a few times. Dogs were inside, so I actually never heard them barking, but I would suggest get the dog some exercise, because he's in they're both in a 10 by 10 kennel. They're working breed dogs. They need to get exercise, otherwise they're going to bark. So do you walk them? Do you do anything with them? You throw the ball?
Yeah, no, not so often.
Not enough,
We are
'cause they're-
planning
how old are
on
they?
putting fence and things that they can run, but
Yeah, how
we
old
are
are
still
they?
doing a lot of work in that house as well.
How old are your dogs?
Yeah, 5 months.
5 months? They're puppies. They need massive amounts of exercise. They need a job because they're German Shepherds. The other thing I would also suggest requiring is getting them spayed and neutered in that 2 months. because that'll help a lot of other issues.
Yeah, my trainee said it might help or might not do.
It might, but they're young. The sooner you do it, the better it will help these issues.
Talking to people.
Besides, you get two, a male and a female. Do we want puppies? Because that's going to be another problem 6-7 months down the road that we're going to be dealing with, and I don't want to deal with that either. So I would, and you can do that. That's it.
Thanks for those suggestions. Again, you're getting expert opinions more than you are from me, that's for sure, when it comes to what to do. But I think, again, it's fair just to ask you whatever means you use to get it under control. I shouldn't use the word fixed. It's a bad word here. Under control in 2 months, and we'll hope that we just have good reports at the end of that time, and everybody's happy. It's great. We love dogs. Thanks.
All right, so you can close the hearing.
So I think we can close the hearing on dangerous and nuisance dogs. Thank you. Thanks very much.
So I can, do you have anything else?
I don't know. Oh, you know, I do want to say one thing.
Okay.
It's actually...
We're not done yet. Pardon me? Oh, good, good.
I'm cooking, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm a relative.
Oh, and you're admitting it. Geez, that's... you're admitting it?
Out loud on TV? I'll say hello. Right.
I don't know. You know, I was just going to encourage people to get vaccinated because we're coming. I don't know if it's a good thing to do.
Oh, okay. I was just going to make an announcement and we can adjourn.
Do you want to make it first?
Both of those dogs are babies?
That's okay.
What's that?
Both of the dogs are babies?
I'll just, before we end this meeting, I'll just encourage folks, and it's purely on individual volition and decision, but encourage folks as we approach the fall to get your vaccinations for the flu, for COVID, where new variants are coming out, and even for respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV. I think especially those who have diabetes or immune compromise for various reasons, or other health issues, or elderly like me, might want to consider getting your vaccinations for your own protection. So again, it's purely each individual's decision to make, but it would be my recommendation to do it. I just had a couple of mine yesterday and getting another one tomorrow, so I think it's good to take care of yourself.
Good point.
And for the next item on the agenda, I just have one announcement. Saturday, September 30th in the Upper Common from 10 to noon, we'll have a recovery day of service. This service brings together people from all walks of life to give back to their community. It's a day they recognize that the recovery community, recovery successes, and the power of engagement. So September 30th marks the culmination of National Recovery Month and coincides with International Recovery Day. So that's Saturday, September 30th from 10 to noon in the Upper Common. And we are also accepting, there'll be speakers, resources, and refreshments. And we will also be collecting items to fill backpacks at the event, such as leggings, T-shirts, flip-flops, journals, and socks.
For all ages?
For all ages, yes. And that's my announcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Want to make a motion to adjourn?
We're adjourned.
Second.